Have you ever felt completely stuck? Like there's this massive wall in your path and just no way around it? Yeah, we've all been there. But what if that wall, that obstacle, wasn't actually blocking your path? What if the obstacle was the path? Let's dive into this because we're about to break down a powerful way to turn life's biggest frustrations into your absolute greatest strengths. And look, this idea isn't some new age fluff. It's battle-tested. It comes from one of the greatest leaders in history, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius. He understood something really deep that most of us miss. The very thing that seems to be holding you back contains the exact fuel you need to launch yourself forward. This isn't just a nice quote, it's a strategic mindset for life. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to unpack this whole strategy using a simple 3-part framework. We'll start with the core philosophy, then we'll master the 3 essential disciplines: how you see the world, how you act in it, and the inner strength you need to keep going. And finally, we're going to completely flip the script on the idea of failure itself. All right, let's get right to the heart of it. This is a fundamental shift in how we look at every single problem, whether it's a tiny annoyance or a life-changing crisis. So the big idea, and this comes from Ryan Holiday's work on modern stoicism, is that you don't find the path forward by trying to avoid the obstacle. No, you go right through it. See, the challenge itself forces you to get creative, to develop new skills, to build a kind of resilience you just didn't have before. That so-called problem you're staring at, it's not a roadblock. It's your personal training ground. Let's move on to our first discipline, and honestly, this is the foundation for everything else. It's all about your perception. Before you can do anything effectively, you have to see the situation clearly. The way you frame a problem is basically the control panel for everything that comes next. Now, this is so important. There's what actually happens in the world, and then there's the story we tell ourselves about what happens. I lost my job is an objective fact, but I lost my job and my life is over? Well, that's a subjective judgment, and it's a destructive one. Learning to separate these two things, that's your first superpower. And get this isn't just ancient wisdom. It's actually validated by modern science. The principles of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, are built on this exact same foundation. Both Stoicism and CBT are toolkits for pushing back against our irrational thoughts and mastering our emotions. The goal for both? To build so much psychological resilience that what happens outside of you no longer controls what happens inside of you. So the crucial takeaway is this. We are the ones who decide how much power an obstacle gets to have over us. By just steadying our nerves, questioning our initial reactions, and putting things in perspective, we can shrink that problem down to its actual size. You get to control the narrative. Okay, so you've cleared your head. You're seeing the situation for what it is. Now it's time to act. But this second discipline isn't about frantic, panicked movement. It's about taking deliberate, strategic, and constructive action. It's about doing the right thing, not just anything. A fantastic model for this actually comes from the world of innovation. Let's call it the startup mentality. Successful startups are masters at navigating total uncertainty. They don't see a failed product launch as some kind of catastrophe. They see it as vital data that tells them what to do next. We can apply that exact same mindset to our own lives. And this slide shows you how. You don't have to solve the whole giant problem at once. Just start with one small testable first step, your minimum viable product. Treat every setback not as a failure, but as priceless feedback telling you what to adjust. Then you iterate. And if the obstacle feels like an impossibly large boulder, stop trying to move the boulder. Break it down into 100 small stones you can actually move, one by one. The real key here is to obsess over the process, not the outcome. An undisciplined mind gets paralyzed by how huge the final goal seems. But a strategic mind, a leader's mind, focuses only on taking the very next step flawlessly. Excellence isn't some big single event. It's just the result of a lot of small, well-executed steps strung together. So you've got the right perception, and you're taking the right actions. But what happens when you get knocked down? And then knocked down again? That's where the third discipline comes in, your will. This is your inner fortress, that unbreakable core that keeps you going no matter what the storm throws at you. A really powerful Stoic technique for building this will is called premeditatio malorum, which is just a fancy Latin term for the premeditation of adversity. Now let's be clear, this is not about being a pessimist. It's about being a strategist. It's like a general preparing for every possible thing that could go wrong on the battlefield, so they're never caught by surprise. So here's the exercise. Before you start anything important, just visualize the potential problems. Think about where things could go sideways. The point isn't to scare yourself, it's to build up your emotional and mental armor. Then you make a plan. What's plan B? What's plan C? So when a crisis does hit, you don't panic, you just calmly switch to a contingency you've already thought through. Because here's the ultimate truth. Things will go wrong. The world outside of you is completely unpredictable. But your will, your choice to get up, to adapt, to learn, to persevere with courage, that is always 100% within your control. It's the one thing that can never, ever be taken from you. This brings us to our final, and maybe our most important idea. We've been taught our whole lives to see failure as a flaw, right? A bug in our plan for success. That is completely backward. Failure isn't a bug, it's a feature. This quote just says it all. A crisis doesn't create character, it reveals it. Adversity is a filter. It shatters the things that are fragile, and it forges the things that are resilient. It's the one thing that separates the good from the truly great. And what's true for companies is true for us. The greatest leaders and innovators in history aren't defined by avoiding failure. They're defined by their response to it. They're the ones who find a way to transform a setback into a new strategy, or a weakness into a powerful new strength. So let's bring it all home. This is your new operating system. First, master your perception. That's your ultimate power. Second, take deliberate, right action. Focus on the process. Third, forge an unbreakable will to endure absolutely anything. With these three things, you can turn any obstacle into your way forward. And I'll leave you with this final thought. We spend so much energy trying to avoid failure, but what if the next time you hit that wall, you saw it not as a setback, but as an asset, as a gift? What if that failure contains the exact lesson you need for your next breakthrough? What would you do differently starting right now?